Alright, welcome back guys. So in this video, we're now going to talk about the next property of the subconscious mind. And this one is probably going to be the most important one that we talk about. I mean, they're all important, but this one's really important. You know what I mean? So we're now going to talk about subconscious energy. We're going to talk about its transient nature, which is very important to understand when it comes to understanding the subconscious. So, let me just say that when I first started trying to study the subconscious mind, I started trying to, when I started trying to learn about it in earnest, I started really trying to study it. I started trying to learn how to control my emotions, right? I kept trying to practice making myself feel an emotion as intensely as I possibly could, like just in the moment. And I was doing that basically because I was trying to understand how, what properties of the mind, I wanted to understand if there were any properties of the mind that change when emotions reach really, 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 really intense levels, right? Or the body. Basically, I wanted to know how things change when emotions go really high. And that's kind of similar to what happens in physics. So in physics, if something gets really, 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 really small, right? Physicists would be interested in trying to see what phenomena occur there that are more difficult to perceive when you zoom out and you're not looking at it at such a small scale of reality. And basically that's the study of quantum mechanics, right? So them doing that, it didn't exactly start that way, but them basically doing that is where quantum mechanics came from. And more or less, I think it came from trying to understand the wavelength of trying to understand light that gets emitted from certain elements or certain types of radiation. They couldn't properly explain it because they didn't understand quantum mechanics. They had to understand, they didn't realize that materials at a quantum level work very differently from materials when you're not looking at them at a quantum level. So, in other words, I say all that to basically say that when something gets really small, the properties of physics, or certain properties of physics that are suppressed when they're not small, become more observable. Same thing happens when matter gets really, really, when you look at it at a very, very, very large scale, right? When you look at a very large scale, like galaxies and different galaxies, planets, things like that, I think, I could be wrong, but I believe the phenomenon of dark matter starts to become more perceivable, because you can't really explain the motion and the formation of the galaxies based on gravity alone. So some things are only perceivable based on really small scales or really large scales, or if something's really hot or if it's really cold or whatever. So I wanted to know if there was something like that when emotions go really, really, really high. What happens then? What happens then that is difficult to perceive when they're not really intense? So that's basically what I was trying to do and how I kind of learned about a lot of this stuff. Now, the mistake I kept making was I kept believing that emotions could be felt instantaneously, right? So I wanted to feel really intense levels of emotion, but I wanted to do it just in the moment, like at a snap of a finger, just feel it like that, because that was my perception of how emotions worked. My whole life, I thought I was always feeling emotions just in the moment instantaneously. But then, if you think about it, I think I put this example in the book. If you think about a song, let's say a song that you felt a lot of emotion from, a lot of emotional stimulation from. Let's say you heard it on the radio, you probably had to hear it a couple of times before you started to really feel it. And then you noticed that you felt it like a lot. Now you want to listen to it all the time, but you didn't necessarily feel that the very first time you listened to it. It took a while. It's like it had to build up in its own way, right? And that actually is how emotions work. Sometimes it can seem like emotions occur instantaneously. From the conscious perspective, that a lot of times is what it seems like. That's because you're not paying attention to what's happening subconsciously. And this is something I learned. So, basically, I could go to the first point now. Subconscious thoughts cannot express large amounts of energy instantaneously. So the only type of subconscious thought we really talked about is emotion. So you can just basically think of that as you can't feel a lot of emotion instantaneously. I know it seems like you can, and probably in your experience you would say, no, there have been many times where I felt a lot of emotion quickly. No, I mean, at least based on my studying the subconscious, that's not what happens. And I observe it in people all the time. I used to think that too, but that isn't what happens. You just weren't paying attention to the moment it was building up. But emotions actually, let me go to the second point. Subconscious energy, which refers to the energy level of emotions in this case, subconscious energy always builds up in a transient way over time. And that's basically a principle and process that I call subconscious charging. So that's very important. So your subconscious energy actually has to charge. And that's actually what I was talking about in chapter 1, where I said the negative mind doesn't have an energy component. And the reason is because it doesn't have this transient nature to it. Like, let's say that I associate moving my arm with an energy component. So I can move it like this, which is with less energy, and I can move it like that, which is with more energy. But I didn't have to charge it. That's why I don't consider it energy, right? Emotional energy isn't like that, or subconscious energy isn't like that. You can't just feel as much emotion as you want to instantaneously like I can move my arm, or like I can do with negative-minded thoughts. Subconscious thoughts, all of it always follows always follows a charging rule or a charging principle. Every subconscious thought you can apply it has an energy component, so it acts a little differently, or it's experienced differently by the conscious mind as it gets more and more energy. And so controlling your subconscious mind is going to involve, you have to learn how to control the energy. You have to learn how to build it up. And so basically, if you're trying to control your subconscious without focusing on the energy component, without charging it, then you're just never going to learn how to control it, because it's never going to do anything. It's never really going to do anything significant if it lacks energy. For it to do something special, it needs energy. The more energy it has, the more amazing it's going to be for whatever you want to use it for. Now, to get more energy, you have to charge it. You always have to charge it. So, subconscious, and that's why I say it's the most important principle, is because everything you do with the subconscious mind, at least on the conscious level, when you're trying to actually control it, you have to focus on the charging the energy component. So anything like I do with my subconscious mind today, I always focus on charging it. I mean, I've been doing it so long, right? I know exactly how long it's going to take me to charge it, to do certain things or to experience it at a certain level. But everything's based on charging. What else do I want to say? I can go to this next point, but I feel like there's something else I wanted to get to. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But everything you do with the subconscious mind is going to be based on charging. So you just have to get used to that. I remember, I'll go into that story a little later. But yeah, now, what I will say is that there are some things there are moments or experiences that seem like exceptions to this rule. And we're going to talk more about those later. But those are exceptions. They're not the actual rule, right? And most people, I feel like most people, they focus on things like their emotions, and they expect them to operate in a way that obeys the exception. They don't realize that that's one little window that, is atypical, right? That's not even the normal way emotions work. But everybody tries to focus on controlling their emotions within that tiny little window that's like the abnormal case. That's why people have so much trouble learning to control their emotions, or trying to be happy or feel more emotional stimulation in this situation and that situation. They don't know how to just make themselves feel more like wonderful feelings of emotion all the time, right? And once you know how to control it, you can pick whatever emotion you want, and you can feel it more and more and more and more. You can go as high as you want to, because once you learn how to actually charge it, you can just keep charging it. And you just keep charging it as far as you want to until you say stop. What I will say, though, is you're not going to want to, like me, when I was first figuring out how to do this and I first started practicing to charge it, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to see what happens when emotions go to really, really high levels. So I was actually trying to find if there was some ceiling, if there was some highest level of emotion that was possible, emotional intensity. But what I'll say is I don't think I ever found the ceiling. But if you go to really high levels, it's actually not good. You're not going to want to do that. And we'll talk a little more later about the reason why. But for now, basically, the compulsions from your subconscious get way too strong. You know what I mean? Because remember, like I said, compulsions have an energy component. And you can kind of relate to this when you are in a highly emotional state, right? When you're extremely emotional, right, it's like you can't think straight. The emotion is kind of taking over your mind, and it's making you kind of see things that aren't there or think in a very diluted way. And that happens because of the compulsions from your subconscious. They're compelling your conscious mind to think in a certain way. And the compulsion is so powerful, right, that it's difficult. You just get swept up in it, right? It's difficult to resist it. So the compulsion, when your subconscious energy goes way too high, the compulsions are so powerful that it's like impractical. It's like you're gonna almost seem like a crazy person. And you notice that like when people are in love, right? So when a person's in love, you have a young couple, it's usually a young couple, but when you have a young couple in love, like really, really in love, like they might do something crazy like get tattoos of each other, claim they're gonna marry each other and like knowing each other in like 1 or 2 weeks. You know what I mean? The first 1 or 2 weeks they'll start talking about marriage. Why? It's because they are feeling so much of the love emotion that it's just the compulsions are just making their thoughts go crazy, right? There's no love. Their conscious mind starts to lose the rationality that it normally has, you know, and that actually brings me to another process. So that we're talking about now the third bullet point here, the third star point. So just as subconscious energy charges, subconscious energy also undergoes a transient discharging process. So your subconscious is basically like a battery, right? It can build energy, and then it also discharges energy over time. So, for example, when young couples are in love, they get tattoos at each other, like their subconscious compelling them so strongly in distorting what's rational to them. It's making them feel an urge to do things, but after a while, they lose the energy. The subconscious discharges the energy. And then they lose their energy. Now the subconscious is not compelling them as strongly. Now their negative mind can think more rationally, more freely. They got their rationality back. Then they're like, why the heck did I do that? They know it doesn't make sense, and they know it didn't make sense before. But they couldn't see it before because the compulsions were too strong. You know, so subconscious energy always has a charging process and a discharging process, and it's not instantaneous. In other words, it takes a while. So it takes a while to charge, and it takes a while to discharge. And so as you get used to charging your subconscious, you're going to start to notice it. As you get used to controlling your subconscious, you're going to notice it. And you're going to start to consciously think in terms of what's going on with your subconscious. You're gonna when you want to do something, you're going to get a sense of how to charge it. You're going to be like, yeah, I need to charge it first to do this or to experience this with my subconscious. You're going to get a sense of how long it's going to take you to charge it to do this. And then you're going to also get a sense of how long it's going to take you to discharge it. Let's say I charge a particular emotion, then I'm done with that emotion. I don't feel like feeling it anymore. It's not going to just go away immediately, right? I have to now wait for it to discharge. And I have to wait. It's better to wait for that before charging another emotion if I want to. So it's always a process of charging and discharging. So you have to get used. That's just the whole sort of framework of charging the subconscious, right? It's always, everything's expressed in terms of charging and discharging, charging and discharging. If you're not doing that, you're not controlling the subconscious. There's no way you could realistically claim you're controlling your subconscious without focusing on the charging process. That's the negative mind doesn't have that. Everything is done instantaneously. And the reason people have so much trouble perceiving what's going on with their subconscious because everything it's doing is charging up. It's always charging and discharging. And that just doesn't occur to people that that's a thing, right? I was charging the subconscious for a while before I really realized what was happening, right? Because everything I kept trying to do instantly, with my subconscious. Because I knew the subconscious was there at that point, and I knew that it was doing certain things. But it just didn't occur to me that it could charge. It could charge it. It charges over the course of days. You know what I mean? It's not like, you charge to the max in like a couple minutes. Like, it takes days to charge certain things. We'll talk more about that. To get more into the timing of it is something we're going to talk about in chapter 9 and 10. For now, you're just learning the basic principle of charging. So I hope I've made it clear. I probably repeated myself multiple times, but I want to emphasize that this is probably the most important property of this, at least of controlling your subconscious. You have to think in terms of charging. And that's very opposite the negative mind, which is the intuitive one. You know what I mean? You're not used to thinking of charging when it comes to the negative mind. That's why everyone thinks in terms of the negative mind. They're used to it, and they think everything the mind does is in the same fashion as the negative mind, which is just instantaneous. It's not. You have to start thinking in terms of transient timing periods, which refer to the charging process and the discharging process. All right, so I'm done emphasizing that, but I hope I made that clear. So, yeah, we're pretty much talked for the rest of the book about charging in terms of talking about the subconscious. In the next video, we're going to talk about what I call subconscious frequency, which that's another important thing, right? So you know what? Thanks for watching, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you next video.